Once again, this has absolutely nothing to do with the coronavirus epidemic. This is about the geography of nowhere. You can feel the heat behind some books. The author doesn't even try to disguise it. That's true for the one I just read. The Geography of Nowhere, a title that hooked me and a volume that delivered. It was written by James Kunstler, and his subject, boiled down to the pith, is the mess we've made of the places where we live and work. Kunstler is no academic, but he knows his stuff. He traces domestic architecture and civic planning from the beginning of America to the not-so-very-pretty present. The culprits in the mess we've made are capitalism, interested in profit, not the well-being of humanity, and so generating housing starts, suburbs, strip malls, and office parks galore. Industrialization, the factories in the urban cores. The unsparing, unadorned, modernist style. Kunstler said it was considered to be the morally correct style, the style of decency, democracy, and freedom. But it was also ubiquitous, cheap, and puritanical. And the car, which catered to the individual and necessitated the tremendous highway system. As Kunstler put it, 80% of everything ever built in America has been built in the past 50 years. And most of it is depressing, brutal, ugly, unhealthy, and spiritually degrading. I'll repeat that. 80% of everything ever built in America has been built in the past 50 years, and most of it is depressing, brutal, ugly, unhealthy, and spiritually degrading. During this epoch of stupendous wealth and power, we have managed to ruin our greatest cities, throw away our small towns, and impose over the countryside a joyless junk habitat which we can no longer afford to support. We created a landscape of scary places and became a nation of scared people. Scary people. That's Vance Packard's Nation of Strangers. Kunstler says that individualism, most especially when it comes to ownership of property, is the cause of our woes. Individualism resulted in the worship, no less than that, of the automobile and the detached, no less than that, houses in the suburbs, the terrible sprawl that ate up the land with a uniform glut of affordable, cheap housing and junk food franchises, our trashy and preposterous habitat with no future, according to Kunstler. He worries about the social consequences of living in places that are not worth caring about, the spiritual deformities of a people narcotized by fantasy. The fantasy stems from a belief, taken as a reality, that industry plus technology would equal utopia. Progress is our most important product, as General Electric used to boast. What politicians proudly call growth was really a long and drawn-out process of destruction. What has been lost, as Packard also noted, is the sense of community. Extreme individualism of property ownership degrades the idea of the public realm. The public realm is no longer the physical manifestation of the common good. With no public realm, there is no common good and no community. Suburbia is the exaltation of privacy and the elimination of the public realm. Kunstler writes, the organic wholeness of the small town street was the result of common everyday attention to details, of intimate care of things intimately used. We have become accustomed to living in places where nothing relates to anything else, where disorder, unconsciousness, and the absence of respect reigns unchecked. Community is mostly a sentimental memory, like Christmas. Kunstler said he is a student of human ecology, and when he looks at his country, he sees a nation of overfed clowns living in a hostile urban environment. He pads his book so it will be long enough to be a book, emphasizing and re-emphasizing his points, drumming them home. But given the dire, dreary, and utterly depraved reality, Detroit, Los Angeles, etc., it's hard to overstate his cry. We have built this cheap crap, the crudscape, the awful cavalcade, the chaotic squalor of the strip, ugliness, kitsch, commercial display, until it is all we have, and we must live in it. We treat it the same way we treat commercials on TV. We try to ignore it, hit mute, and we do a good job of that. In his righteous bitching, and it is that, fierce and funny, he glosses that our landscape is now interior, television, video games, the internet. So is community, Facebook. All the rest is old school, vestiges of a bygone lumber, brick, and mortar way that was a massive wreck anyway. That inhospitable world out there, forget about it. I buy his argument. The way pollution creates dead zones in river deltas, so too does lethally dumb architecture and endless parking lots create dead zones in entire towns and cities. It's impossible to overstate the horrifying stupidity and cupidity of our people. Drunk on oil, we did this individually together. We were and are self-centered, self-indulgent, self. I remember when Tom Wolfe called the 70s the me decade. Hell, Tom, that was just a slice of the me century. And that continues to this day. A solution? Kunstler proposes some, but for me, this is like working with addicts. We won't stop until we hit the bottom, a time that is often called too late. We chose to be junkies. We OD'd on crap.